So basically I drew this one thing and I managed to make her clothes look creased, and I was like, well, I'm just the best. Like this is peak level, and I basically should be the one to teach everyone else because I'm just that good. So I'm here with a video about it. Where are my notes? Ah, they are here. Wait, I need materials. Alright, so let's start with shapes. The most important thing, I guess, to note, creases always look more interesting at the bottom. Like I've got a tissue here. The top is just a point and it flows downwards, and all the interesting creasy stuff happens at the bottom, right? And that's pretty useful if you want to draw dresses and stuff. Let's say we've got a waist here. Let's say it's like an A-line dress. The fabric will, you know, flow past the body here. And just like the tissue, it's gonna become more interesting at the bottom. And what I used to do as a kid is just be like that, right? Because in my head, that's what dresses looked like. And that is typically what fabric looks like if you just hold it flat. But because we're 3D and we're cylindrical, so there's gonna be more interesting overlapping shapes, right? And creases that form because of that. What I tend to do is I just draw zigzags for things like skirts and dresses. Forget about the lines for now, just like vaguely put down a line of action and just be like we, right? And then connect it up. And then where you've done these wavy things, you can just draw lines in the direction of the waist, because these things are showing that the dress is overlapping. And then to finish it off, you can show the crease like that, like this. And that in itself is a lot nicer shape than just that, right? Even though this probably looks like that when it's just on a surface, but because it's hanging from a body, it like flows out. With things like pleated miniskirts, you can basically do the same thing, where you have this vague line of action and then just draw like these zigzag triangle things, connect it up, draw the little overlapping parts in these small sections, and then draw lines up to the waist to show that it's pleated, to show the little crease thingy-majigs. And then you have a pretty convincing looking skirt. Alright, let's say you wanna draw a sweater or something. If I put a pen under this tissue, you can see that where the pen is, the tissue is smooth, but then where it drops off, that's where all the shapes are, like the creases and shadows and things. So I think when drawing creases, you just have to remember where the body is going to fill the clothes and where it's not. So in the case of tops and stuff, the shoulders and the chest area tend to not have a lot of creases, and they all tend to be towards the bottom, especially for people with larger chests. There's basically gonna be like no creases around the chest, but there might be quite a lot here. For example, let's say I'm gonna draw a t-shirt. There's like basically no creases here, right? Because that's where the clothing is hanging off from. And then draw the t-shirt however loosely or tightly you want to make that. To show that the t-shirt is stretched, you could do that, because when you stretch fabric, you get the tightened look. Let's say the t-shirt is a little bit baggy on her, right? And all the shapes are gonna happen at the bottom. So you wanna put in some zigzags there, right? And what happens is that these rows of creases tend to connect up with each other, and you can kind of vaguely represent that by drawing arrows of different sizes. Some people draw triangles like that. I tend to just draw arrows, and they go like side to side, you know, in varying sizes like that. This also works if you want to draw a rolled up sleeve, because this is just a t-shirt sleeve, right? To draw a rolled up sleeve, you can firstly draw a baggy sleeve and then make it super scrunched up towards the bottom, and then draw the little triangle thingies of varying sizes just round about there. Actually, you probably want to make it round as well, because an arm is a cylinder. Yeah, make it round. So all the detail and wriggles are around here, yeah, towards the bottom of the clothing. Cool, what about trousers? Well, it depends on how baggy you want to make them. But trousers are always going to have a crease at the crotch. With jeans and things, there tends to be a pretty distinct crease at around here that goes straight across like that. And then the thighs tend to be pretty, you know, thigh-y. And then towards the bottom, if they're baggy, they might essentially do the same thing, you know, go all zigzag. So when you're drawing the little squiggles, right, so the material is gonna gather at the bottom, so you want to make sure that it's more scrumpled at the bottom, like the wriggles slowly get more wriggly at the bottom, right? So I'm just gonna draw light lumps here and then make it super squiggly. And that goes for the little arrow creases as well. Just draw like a fairly wide arrow there, and then as it gets to the bottom, just make them more and more narrow, and that makes it more convincing. Let's say you want a super baggy t-shirt and the body is quite flat chested, right? If I pinch this at 2 points, you can see that a U-shaped or a V-shaped crease forms, and that happens on baggy t-shirts as well. So let's say this user is pretty flat chested and there's not particularly anything behind the chest area. In that case, these 2 points are like my fingers that pinched the tissue earlier, and there was a V-shaped crease, right? So it would have been like that. And then you can draw the rest of the creases as per usual. So another point is that creases tend to form around joints, especially if they're bending them. So let's say someone's like wearing a sweater, they crumple. So all you have to do here is do the arrow thing, but going into the joint. So like this way, and that way. Voila, you have crease. If you want to make your clothes more interesting, you can basically apply what I said earlier about dresses to basically anywhere that you want ruffles. So let's say you want a ruffled collar line, you just make the type of shape of collar you want. I'm just making a v-neck here, and it's just gonna go this way, right? And then you do the zigzag thing, fill in the areas where they overlap, and put in some lines to show that they're creased. Same with sleeves. If you want to make them like roughly, do that thing, connect it up, make the little overlap points, and some lines towards the point of origin, and voila, you have a nice looking roughly top. So these creases were sort of going outwards, right? But you might want creases that are sort of going in, like for example when clothes are cinched. So let's say you want puffy sleeves because princess. What you do is so the puffy sleeve is going to be like a balloon shape, right? Or like a bulb, I guess. And there's going to be the cuff there. Beautiful. But because it's cinched at the cuff, there are going to be creases. And you want to do a similar thing for cinched clothes. It's not an arrow, but this time you kind of want to make this sort of shape, this following the shape of the arm. So if you do that, then you get a pretty nice cinched look here too. Let's say that the waist is gonna be a little cinched, so I don't know, maybe there's like a little belt or something here. You also want to put the cinch creases in here. You just kind of want to make sure that it's going outward this way, because it's getting narrower towards where it's getting cinched, and there might be a little crease there as well. And then let's say you want it to open up to a really nice puffy skirt. So I'm gonna say the skirt is around that length. Draw my little zigzag things, connect it up, draw the little overlapping points, the little lines towards the waist. And because it was going from cinched to flowing loosely, there's also going to be them creases there coming out. These creases are probably going to be quite a bit thicker than other creases, because belts, especially if the fabric is thick, belts tend to create that effect on clothes. So I might make 1 or 2 here quite thick. And voila, you have a really nice looking dress. Alright, so how do I shade this? Well, for bodies with a larger bust, if the source of light is coming from top down, a shadow is always going to be under the chest, right? And creases are formed by shadows. I mean, you wouldn't have a crease without a shadow, right? For all you know, that might just be the shape of the clothing. And basically all you want to do is take the actual color of the clothing. Let's say the crease is going this way. Just make a stroke there, depending on how big you want a crease to be. Take the shadow color and then go in the opposite direction. And there you have a crease. That's really all there is to it. If you want to make it more pronounced, you take a darker color, go in the opposite direction of the shadow. So let's say the sky is blue. So obviously there's going to be some kind of light reflecting on the t-shirt as well. So if you want to make the creases a bit more interesting, you can also add a hint of blue instead of just the original color. Now, because this t-shirt has creases in the chest area, you can just start shading from this point. So the crease is gonna be, well, that's too dark. So the crease is gonna be dark around this area, right? Because that's where it folds. Because these points are where crease is gonna be the lightest, because it's folding outwards. Like, they're like the mountains, and these are like the valleys. So this part is gonna be fairly dark as well. And then you have other creases here as well, so you can fill them in too. I feel like personally this crease is a bit too big, so I'm gonna separate it up into other smaller creases by putting in shadows there. And that looks slightly more realistic to me, yeah. With things like the dress, first of all, these parts are always gonna be dark as heck because they're under the material, like super dark. The bust area, also pretty dark. It's gonna be a shadow. And then this part, you can just make a stroke with a shaded area, take the original color, and then another stroke that way. And that gets you a crease. Where you made these shapes, they're also gonna be shaded. Make sure to only shade in where you made the shapes, as in leave gaps for these parts, for the mountains, where the fabric is higher, because they're gonna receive light. That one too. I suggest you make your brush around the same size as the crease or bigger. You don't want to make them super detailed, you know, creases are loose, they're free. You want your brush size to be loose and free as well. Just like make strokes where the creases are. Maybe throw in a wild one or two where you haven't drawn one. And then for the dress, these are the parts that are sticking upwards, right? And these are the places that are going to be shadowed. You might want to draw like shadows there, depending on how pleated you want it to look. And voila, you have drawn the creases and shaded the creases. And that's essentially what I did here. If you see, I just took this color, did like a stroke, took the shaded color, and just went back on it. And that is potentially the easiest way to shade creases. And then these yellow parts are just where the golden light is being reflected. Because essentially, creases are like this, right? You have these mountains where things are light, and you have these troughs or valleys where things are dark. So in essence, you're just making things light and dark, because that is how creases are made. Also, just remember to make things flowy where the fabric is starting out or hanging from the body, and then making them squiggly and squigglier towards the bottom if that's what you're going for. Remember the V's or the square thingy-majigs if you're cinching something. The V's and those. You got me? You know, when I was thinking of this video after I drew this piece, I was like, I'm actually the best at. I've never been so productive with creases in my entire life. But while trying to explain myself through this video, I just realized that I actually had no idea what I was talking about. So sorry if that was really confusing. Alright, I am Blue Hazel and I'm gonna go sulk now. Thanks for watching.